This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association. Your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Riley Smith.
Good day and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Today is Tuesday, March 12th of 2024. We're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I have the latest Iowa Ag News headlines, including more coverage from Commodity Classic. Of course, that coverage brought to us by the Iowa Corn Growers Association. But right now, let's take a look at how the markets closed for the day.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
At the end of another trading day in the ag marketplace, we're here with Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net. First off, Ross, how did things end off in the grain markets today?
Hey, Riley. Soybeans had the most strength here today. Soybeans closed the day 15 cents higher. Corn was mixed. It really traded both sides of unchanged. We were lower on the overnight for corn and beans and wheat, but corn traded a little bit higher, closed unchanged, and the wheat market was traded both sides of unchanged also, closed the day mixed.
Now, something interesting that came out from news today, obviously it was a bit of a slower and more uneventful day, but we did hear on some CONAB numbers, and their numbers, their outlook on the crop is a bit different from what the USDA saw. They saw some more significant cuts to that soybean production. So do we think moving forward from like WASDE reports and everything that the USDA might take that more into account, or are they probably going to stay on their own path?
I think for the time being, the USDA will continue to stay on their own path, which is, they typically slow play South America's crop, it seems like, but no question, the CONAB numbers that came out, it was around 7 o'clock Central Time here this morning. That's what gave the spark to the bean market. CONAB, they dropped their Brazil bean production 2.5 million metric tons, which takes them down to 146.9, which the USDA is at 155. So it's definitely a big difference from the USDA, and the market took notice of that. Soybeans, they look good technically, up 15 cents. The funds are still short soybeans. May beans, they got their 50-day moving average is overhead at 1205. We settled the day at 1196 today. So I really think we'll give that 50-day a run, and how we perform there. Soybeans, though, they have the potential for some further upside ahead of that at the end of March when we see the March acres report.
And then on the livestock side of things, what do we see in the beef and hog markets today?
We had firmer trade across the cattle markets and the hog market, for that matter. Live cattle, they were 65 to $1 higher. Last week's cash trade, it was $2 to $3 higher across the industry, which was a very strong sign to see. So I know there's a lot of optimism that we'll see cash trade stay steady here this week, and there's some that are optimistic that we could see some firmer trade yet again. There's a couple that pieces, very interesting things going on in the cattle market, and the first one would be the packers have really slowed down their chain speeds at these plants as numbers get tighter. Their margins have been running in the red here. So year over year, slaughter's it's over 5% lower right now year to date. But you got to keep in mind how many less cattle that we have on feed here, and the fact that the packers are slowing the chain speeds at the rate they are, and cash is going higher. It shows you the tightness in the market, because that's not something you would typically see as they kill less cattle. The other thing that is happening as a result of lower slaughter is beef production's down substantially. So beef production right now is 4.5% lower year over year, and the other thing to keep in mind is right now, beef supplies in cold storage on the last report, we were 10% lower year over year. So we're not swimming in beef right now, and we got lower production. So then what does that do? It really drives up the beef cutout market. And The cutout's been grinding higher here. We've been working back up to the 307 range, but today we finally saw that big move that I've been thinking we'd see here soon with production down so much. And choice was up 363 this morning, and it got to 312.51. That is the highest that the choice cutout's been since early September of last year. So there's a lot of interesting things going on there. The hog market had triple digit gains. April was up 207. May was up $1.60. April did close above yesterday's high, where it's right back to the 9 and 20-day moving average. May hogs had an outside day higher. They traded below yesterday's low, closed above yesterday's high. The cutout was up 106 here this morning in the hog market. So the hog market, it's got a better story, a much better story than what it has. I'm more optimistic as we get into the last half of this year, but hogs, they don't look bad. And the interesting thing for the cutout on hogs is it's the highest that the cutout's been since September 29th of this last year. So hog supplies also, just like beef supplies, their cold storage inventories are sharply lower year over year. So there's a lot of exciting things going on in the cattle and pork markets.
And then something else interesting that's happened with the hog market, and we're more just related to the hog industry in general, is we've seen the Tyson plant in Perry close down, and they were kind of citing, we're hearing what they were citing was kind of along the side of, numbers or inventory is up, but demand is going down a little bit. But, like we've seen, at least globally with exports, demand's been good. So maybe they're just talking consumption. But do we think there's going to be any fears or any ripples through the marketplace that come from seeing places like Tyson close down their processing facilities?
That plant in Perry, I mean, it's very unfortunate for the local community there and the jobs that are impacted. That isn't it. It isn't a huge plant for what the hog industry does see, and it had been floating around, I know, in the market before the announcement did come out. So I don't know that we're going to see a huge impact to the futures markets driven off of that news.
All right, Ross, lots of great information today. For those of our listeners and our viewers who'd like to get in touch and learn more from the folks at agmarket.net, how can they do that?
You can reach me at our office here in Anthon. Our number is 712-373-3276, or you can find any of the ag market brokers at agmarket.net.
Thanks so much for the market analysis today, Ross, and we look forward to getting more great market analysis from you again soon.
Thanks for having me, Riley.
That again was Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net. We'll take a look at how those numbers closed, courtesy of the market window at iowaagnet.com.
May corn went unchanged at 441 3/4. May soybeans up 16 3/4 at 11.96 even. May soybean meal up $2 at 339.20. Soybean oil up 118 at 47.82. Chicago wheat up 1/4 cent at 547 1/2. Kansas City hard red wheat down 1 1/2 at 597 1/4. Minneapolis spring wheat up 2 even at 672 even. May oats up 2 even as well at 372 3/4. On the Merc, April live cattle up 65 cents at 188.25. March feeders up 72 at 248.97. April lean hogs up 207 at 85.35. April pork cutout up 30 at 92.50. And March class 3 milk down 3 cents at 16.44.
And that's been a check of the markets here on Ag Matters PM. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. When we come back, I have the latest Iowa Ag News headlines. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Time now to take a look at the latest Iowa Ag News headlines. Tyson Foods is closing a pork plant in Perry that employs 1,200 people and is eliminating the largest employer in the town. Tyson announced the plant closure on Monday. It comes after the company closed several other plants last year and consolidated its corporate operations the year before. Tyson said it will work with state and local officials to help workers who are losing their jobs, but the company didn't say what severance packages it will offer. Tyson did say it will encourage workers to apply for openings at its other plants. 6 years ago, Tyson received $674,000 in incentives from Iowa to help it pay for a $44 million upgrade to the Perry plant. In other news, applications for paid on-farm jobs are now open for the Practical Farmers of Iowa Labor for Learning program, which provides an opportunity for beginning farmers to train with experienced farmers across the state who are committed to developing the next generation of agriculturists. Over a dozen jobs are available, ranging from farm enterprises to production systems. Donna Warhover at Morning Glory Farm in Mount Vernon is one of this year's returning mentors. She says Morning Glory Farm is a diversified operation with a heavy focus on the local community.
So at Morning Glory Farm, we do community-supported agriculture shares. So over the years, we've done spring, summer, and fall shares to our community. We grow both in, we have a greenhouse, so we start production in the greenhouse. We have high tunnels, so we can both plant very early in the spring and continue into late fall. And then we also do crops in the field. So there's all sorts of different areas that folks can learn in and learn from. We do farmers markets. We have sales to restaurants and community schools. So there are all sorts of different sales avenues. So just a lot of different opportunities for someone to learn the whole business, you know, the farming, the marketing, the business side of running a farm.
Warhover said mentees on her farm can get a taste for a lot of different revenue sources and figure out what they want to bring back to their own operations.
Well, I believe so. And I also think that when you're working on a farm that does so many different things, and as a new beginning farmer can have a taste of all of those different revenue streams and enterprises, you have a better idea going forward what kind of things you are interested in pursuing. Not everybody does all of the things that we do. You can narrow that down and decide this is how I want to my farm to look. And I think being a labor for learning mentee allows you to kind of see all the different aspects and decide how you want to model your farm.
The job at Morning Glory Farms typically starts in March and runs all the way through October, so mentees will get the chance to experience a full crop season.
Well, we start out in March of each season, and we work with planting the seeds in planting trays and putting them in the germinator to start the germination process prior to the greenhouse even being fired up. So we start there, then we move to the greenhouse, we move to the high tunnels, and then into the field planting. And so the season starts off with a vengeance right away in March. And usually my Labor for Learning employees stay with me until the end of October. So they have a really good experience with the entire season, from the very beginning of planting the seeds all the way to the end where we're harvesting the last crops and cleaning up the fields and getting ready to, planting cover crop and getting the fields ready for the winter. The week in and out is really dependent on the mentees' availability. They can, during the course of the week, they can do everything from planting, harvesting, share delivery, packing, restaurant order, processing, of course, weeding, irrigation, all of the things.
For more information or to apply, visit practicalfarmers.org. In other news, we have more coverage from this year's Commodity Classic in Houston, Texas. All of that coverage, of course, brought to you by the Iowa Corn Growers Association. Iowa farmers are chomping at the bit to get planters rolling and the crops in the ground. Matt Dolch of NK Seeds says there are several things to keep in mind as we enter this phase of the crop year.
Well, certainly several items top of mind. You think about corn rootworm management, continue to be a tough challenge, taking $1 billion away from farmers across the country here in corn rootworm damage each season. NK offers a great lineup of not only genetics, but we also offer Duracade Viptera products. 5 new corn hybrids for this season offering Duracade to manage corn rootworm, best in class from a management perspective. So look for Duracade Viptera trait packages controlling 16 above and below ground insects.
Corn rootworm is projected to be an especially pervasive pest this year, and Dolch says that their traits have multiple modes of action against that pest.
Duracade is a unique protein and trait here provided by Syngenta and the NK brand, so that's something here that can offer different modes of action to manage some of that resistance. We like multiple modes of action, so you look at Duracade with AgriSure rootworm, other products there to help drive that. I think use something different than what you've used in the past. So don't utilize the same technology each season to manage corn rootworm. Not only do we recommend a soil applied insecticide, but we also recommend that trait, and rotating that trait can certainly help do that.
Dolch says their seed is also prepared to take on a slew of other potential yield limiting factors.
Well, family farms in southwest Iowa, so we've got a vested interest in the Iowa farmer for sure. And you think about the NK corn portfolio, looking for products with artesian technology, maximizing yield when it does rain, increasing yield when it doesn't. I think that can help manage that. You look at Viptera for above ground control, making sure that you control broad lepidopteran pests like corn earworm, western bean cutworm, some of those things that can take yield away. And then I think just overall looking at those genetics. So NK's offered 32 new hybrids over the past 2 seasons, 12 new for 2025, and that's a huge amount of our portfolio, 40% of our portfolio brand new, so not your grandparents' NK.
Dolch also highlighted some disease pressures that farmers should be prepared for this year.
Yeah, statewide, thinking about just disease tolerance in general. Tar spot, a huge issue. It continues to creep and take yield away from corn growers. We've got a very robust, strong, industry-leading package in the NK corn lineup to manage tar spot. Then even Goss's wilt moving to that western side. We see that kind of creeping in various seasons. So really important here. And just thinking about, again, new genetics, new traits here. How do you rotate things on the farm to continue to push that yield ceiling?
For more information or to find your local NK Seeds retailer, visit nkseeds.com. And that's all we have for the Iowa Ag News headlines for today. That also brings us to the end of this episode of Ag Matters PM. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. Also find us on social media at Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and TikTok, and find our video content as well as previous episodes of AM PM on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell to see when those videos are posted. Don't forget as well our free Twice Daily Market podcast on Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Riley Smith. On behalf of Mark Magnuson, Dustin Huffman, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.